Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about Tactical Marines or Gabriel Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
All right, welcome to episode 7 of our series where we're looking at all the Strikeforce missions. We are looking today at Tides of Conviction, and this is a 6-objective map using a layout that we first saw in Nakmund, and they've kept the layout very much the same. Let's dive into the mission rules.
It's a weird layout, isn't it?
I hate this mission. It's not for anything other than this is one of those ones where you spend 20 minutes at the beginning of the game
measuring everything out. Yeah. Oh, awkward.
I was going to say, I've played this mission a few times. I didn't dislike it.
The mission's fine. It's just the setup takes bloody ages.
So you get CP at the start of every command phase, as you would normally do. However, there is a limitation there, and that limitation is you only get the CP at the start of the command phase if you control the objective in your home deployment zone. So
Correct.
If you can threaten their deployment zone, you can cut off their CP gain for the game, which could be very interesting indeed.
Yep. It's a control 2, control 3, control more?
Yeah, 2, 3 more, which is what the first one we've seen so far in these in this series. They've all been hold 1, hold 2, hold more before now, which is fine.
And then overrun. At the end of each player's first, second, third, and fourth turn, the player whose turn it is scores 2 victory points if they control at least one objective marker in the opponent's territory. So that means the opponent's half of the board. If you were player A down here, you would need to get it in player B's territory, so one of these 3. At the end of the battle, each player scores 4 victory points if they control the objective marker in their opponent's deployment zone, and 2 victory points for each opponent's each objective they get in the territory. So potentially on that final turn, there's 8 up for grabs, which is a lot.
So you're not really... So there are 4 objectives you want to be getting in this game. There's your home one, there's your opponent's home, and there's the 2 near the opponent's deployment zone. The 2 nearest your deployment zone, you're not overly bothered with necessarily, except if you want to hold them for things like just holding objectives in general, or doing raised banners, because they are actually quite close to your DZ, so using those for raised banners isn't bad, except for the fact that your opponent is heavily incentivized for coming for those objectives that you will have raised banners on. So because of that, I would not advise raised banners on this mission.
It depends on your army a bit on that. If you've got because there's a lot of points for taking their ones, but if you've not got an army that's going to take their ones, so for example, you're playing Tau, say, then potentially fortifying your own 3 and then just trying to strike out and take one of theirs, maybe the further one away.
Which means to be playing in probably 3 quarters. So if you want to be considering engage on all fronts on that basis, just bear in mind that you're probably going to be based in 3 quarters of the board.
Not 4.
Maybe not incentivized in going into the 4th one.
Yeah. Don't take oaths. I think this is a bad one for oaths.
Agreed?
It's not.
No?
I played this one at a tournament, and if you look at this objective, the bottom left-hand objective, not the one in your deployment zone, I had a piece of terrain above that, sort of like an L, one of those L-shaped pieces.
Yeah.
And
you're going to say you can hold that and still be within 6 of the middle.
Yeah, I was able to basically have a unit that was like just touching this objective, 3 inches away from it. And then if you think, because of this is 6 and 6, remember, so a single model can hold the middle for oath. So I was able to put, I think it was my Sanguinary Priest right in this corner. He was able to touch that objective and be in cover and hold the middle. So he was actually doing like great work for me. Because 6 inches down from the middle easily gets into that bubble of 3 inches away from that objective.
Okay, I can see your point. So maybe worth considering rather than just a complete write-off. On other similar notes, behind enemy lines and relentless assault, if you want to dedicate units to sitting in your opponent's deployment zone and scoring them, I'm sure that could be fairly easy because your opponent isn't going to really care about sitting in a deployment zone unless...
No, sending cheap units to do that with is not necessarily a bad shout.
And it'd be really difficult to keep you out, considering how incentivized they are to go out and do other stuff.
And how long the deployment zones are. It's going to be quite hard to screen that.
So
they're not going to screen that.
So you made a really good point, Mark, of like, you don't want to hold these 2 objectives that are just out of your deployment zone, but you kind of have to hold them because you need to
defend them.
Yeah, so you need to have the 3. So what that means when I play this map anyway, it felt like they're probably going to be strong on the one that's central, because you're probably going to be strong on the one that's central. So maybe if you were player A, you want to flank on the left-hand side and maybe like hoping that this one on the far left is like the weakest. But if they spread their forces evenly between the 2 and you've spread your forces evenly between the 2, then it's a tough one. It's going
to be a slugging match. It's not.
Yes.
The more central ones you'd think would be stronger inherently because of their positions close to the deployment zone objectives, where they're going to be forces holding those as well anyway.
Yeah. So I actually don't mind this mission. I've played it a few times. I've won on it. I've lost on it. And the most important thing, I think, is just to remember there's a giant swing coming at the end of the game. In that, if they basically hold, if they're going second, and I think it's actually quite an advantage sometimes in 40k at the moment to be second with the primary scoring at the end of the second turn. So they can get if they can pressure a couple of your points in turn 5, they can take like a 20-point swing here.
I do like their advantages. No, go on.
So if you can take and hold their home objective, you can really cripple them because they're getting less CP than you are. And if you've still got at the end of the game, you've got that big swing coming on. So you're really incentivized to take their home objective. If you've got a couple of units you can drop down, like Sandguard or anything really can deep strike and then hit hard, you've got a really good chance of really crippling them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's really gonna benefit armies that can do a lot of good deep striking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I deep struck a Telemon Dreadnought once into their deployment zone with this one, and then I took their objective and put that on it. It's like, well, you can take it back if you can kill him.
Seems fair.
I was going to say, this might actually be finally a use for all these people that are running like 10-man Blightlord Terminators. There's what they should be doing. Drop the 10-man Blightlord on the opponent's DZ, turn 2, cut off their command points completely, and then, when I run into 10-man Blightlords, I just run away from them and usually win the game. This would be a way where it's like, I kind of have to go deal with them, because I like CP, right?
Cutting off CP during Nachmund was annoying, but you could sort of live with it given how much you started with and how little you gain compared to now, where you gain the bulk of it during the battle. So that's
cutting off
that's
CP is huge.
Impact.
Yeah,
maybe worth actually building for.
Drop down turn
something
2, take it turn 3, don't give it back.
What about deep striking a Thunderhawk gunship to take the backfield objective?
They can't deep strike.
They can.
Yes, they can.
Well,
you start them in turn 1, you fly them off the board, and then any aircraft returning from strategic reserves can deep strike anywhere on the board they like.
All right. Well, you can fly it off and then fly it back on again. Yes, you can do that.
So it flies off turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's got hover mode, so you could just but it can't hold the objective, can it?
No. But you could kill what's on the objective, you'd hope, right?
You'd hope so, but unfortunately, the Thunderhawk gunship does have a habit of being 800 points of fail.
Right, that time on this bombshell, let's end this episode. We'll catch you in episode 8. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
But do it responsibly. Not willy-nilly.